According to the holistic life view of the Hindus, all plants and humans are illumined by one consciousness. They are not separate from each other. They are interdependent. They nurture and complement each other. Veda says, a body is a mini cosmos. Therefore, by meditating on the body, one can acquire the knowledge of the cosmos. Now we are left with the sutras of Patanjali. The experiential continuities are long lost. Indian knowledge was never just speculation or arrived at by fluke. It was achieved by a different method of discovery, which needs to be rediscovered. In 1791, a British scholar visited India. He wrote that to learn Indian knowledge systems, one must first understand the Indian mind. Hindus accept the existence of Atma as eternal and unalterable. It's only after considering their view can we understand their sciences. There is a tripartite arrangement of Indian knowledge: logic, ethics, and knowledge of nature. Today, the logical language of Sanskrit is not used for logic in science. Dharma is misunderstood as religion, and nature is studied with a reductionist worldview, and therefore has become a consumerist commodity. It is hard to imagine how the age of the earth was calculated by ancient Indians. It was, in fact, the result of a sophisticated system of knowledge. In the cosmos, what is being seen here is not actually happening there. We are observing light which they emitted millions of years ago. The light of cosmic events that occurred millions of years ago is reaching us today. Our sensory perception can never know the real present of the universe. But in yoga, the state of consciousness is said to be independent of time. It is through this state of consciousness that the ancient Indians comprehended the vast expanse of time in the universe. This recitation gives a glimpse of that vast expanse. The scientific age of Earth is one day of Brahma. That one day of Brahma is further divided into many kalpas, manvantaras and yugas. Today we are living in the Kali Yuga, which falls in the Vaivatsa Manvantar of the Shvetavara Kalpa of the second half of Brahma's day. This Indian counting of time is the most extensive in the world.
हम तो जब भी कोई कार्य शुरू करते थे तो हम सीधे के सीधे अपने को पूरे ब्रह्मांड से जोड़ते थे। ओम विष्णु 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 अद्य परमात्मने पुराण पुरुषोत्तमे अमुक मासे अमुक पक्षे अमुक तिथे भारतवर्षे समझे अमुक प्रांते अमुक जनपदे गौतम गोत्रोत्पन्नोहम राजेंद्र मिश्र शर्माहम निज कल्याण हेतु एतत् करोमि। हम पूरा का पूरा अपने को जोड़ लेते थे कि कौन ब्रह्मांड का कौन अंश चल रहा है, कौन मनवंतर चल रहा है, कौन युग चल रहा है, उसमें कौन सा ये कलयुग है, 28वें कलयुग का कौन सा चरण है, फिर देश का कौन हिस्सा है और उस देश का हिस्सा जो है किस तीर्थ से आवेष्टित है, कौन यहाँ की पवित्र नदी है, कौन महीना है, कौन पक्ष है, कौन सप्ताह है, कौन दिन है, और आज के दिन नवग्रहों की स्थिति क्या है, घड़ी कैसा है, पल कैसा है, करण कैसा है, पंचांग की स्थिति कैसी है। और उससे जब हमारा आइडेंटिफिकेशन हो जाता था, हम पूरा ब्रह्मांडमय हो जाते थे, तब हम अपनी बात कहते थे कि अब मैं अपने कल्याण के लिए, अपनी माँ के जो है कल्याण के लिए, पिता के कल्याण के लिए या इसके लिए मैं ये कार्य करने जा रहा हूँ। ये हमारा साक्ष्य होता था। इसका तो दुनिया में किसी को ज्ञान ही नहीं।
It is not surprising that the ancient Indians knew the concept of time dilation. Thousands of years later, in the 20th century, Einstein introduced this concept of time dilation in his Theory of Relativity. But stories were written thousands of years ago in India which describe the phenomenon of time dilation. Here was a city called Kushasthali, the capital of King Kukudumi. His daughter Revati was so beautiful and cultured that several proposals for her confused the king. Who should he marry her to? In those days, some humans possessed the power to go to higher worlds, like Brahmalok. King Kukudmi traveled with his daughter to Brahmalok to meet Brahmaji. Brahmalok was reverberating with celestial music and dance. Brahmaji was enjoying the performance blissfully. The king had to wait until the show was over. The king then told him of his dilemma. Brahmaji smiled and said, "The men you have in mind for your daughter are all dead now. Not only them, but even their grandchildren and generations are all long gone. Time flows at a different speed on earth. Within this time, 27 Chaturyugas have passed on earth. Now Balaram, brother of Krishna, lives there. Get Revati married to him." When the king returned to earth, he found the city of Dwarka in place of Kushasthali. The place he had left, what seemed to him a little while ago, had changed completely and become a new landscape. Several cycles of human evolution had elapsed. This was the time of the Mahabharata. The writer of the Mahabharata, Maharishi Vyas, describes several events of the Mahabharata through the position of stars and constellations. Various inscriptions in the Purans, the Rajtarangani, and other texts mention the dates of the Mahabharata war. This 1,400-year-old rock edict says that this Jain temple was made by King Ravi Kirti 3,735 years after the Mahabharata war. This period is also the beginning of Yudhishthir Samvat, a calendar still used in India. Aryabhatta has given the date of the Mahabharata war as 18th February 3102 BC. The debate on the date of the Mahabharata war will continue, but the war certainly commenced with the blowing of thousands of giant conch shells. The warriors had filled their chests to blow like roaring thunder. The atmosphere reverberated with the all-powerful sound, and with this came the end of an epoch in a cycle of time. These spirals of a conch shell signify the cycles of time. The earth is generating similar spirals of time. She never returns to the same path again. Sitting in the lap of Mother Earth, we are continuously navigating new spirals every moment in infinite space. A new path and novel creation is the reality of time. Time does not travel in a linear fashion as taught in history today. It is a circular spiral. In every time cycle, a new Ramayana and Mahabharata transpire. It is called Itihas in India. The time cycle of Samsara is the cause of suffering. Why did this come into existence? Desire was the cause. Universal consciousness desired to create Samsara, the world. I from one become many. The creative desire form of universal consciousness is Brahma. Brahma ran after his desire to create Samsara. The non-dual form of blissful consciousness is Adiyogi, Shiva. Shiva wanted to kill Brahma the Creator with an arrow to stop the creation of Samsara. But the process of creation began before the arrow could hit him. It missed its target by one moment. The arrow of time missed by a moment, and time was born. The pulsation of that primordial event still resonates in our consciousness. History is always present in our spiritual being. we are continuously generating desire. By seeding it with our labor, we are creating Samsara. The root cause of suffering is both desire and Samsara. But in creation, there is also rasa, the emotive feelings of life. Creation has followed the blissful tal and rhythms of Shiva. The Rigveda says Rudra, the fierce form of Shiva, is Agni, or fire. Shiva had earlier wanted to kill Brahma, the Creator. But since the creation had already begun, Shiva's Rudra form transformed into Agni to protect Samsara. Agni is the energy of Samsara. Because of Agni, there is motion, there is existence, there is bhog, yog, and rasa. In the end, Agni engulfs all. In dissolution, the Samsara partakes in the rasa of the Tandav dance of Adiyogi Shiva. In the end, all merges into the non-dual Adiyogi. The complete dissolution is nothing but his Samadhi.
Ganga taranga ramani jata kalapam gauri nirantar vibhusita bhagam.
Shiva in Samadhi has been the personification of yoga for thousands of years. All the symbols shown here represent the philosophy of yoga. Shiva is our pure, detached consciousness. And this is the primal nature of Sankhya, the philosophy of yoga. This image of Adiyogi blissfully living in the Himalayan caves may not inspire the modern man. Perhaps this image will inspire him more. The physical notion of health has made us ignorant about the rasa of self-realization. Today, the meaning of Anand is material pleasure. America is a land of material pleasure. India was also once the land of a pleasurable life. Perhaps ancient India had achieved sensory pleasure far greater than in America. The country that looks poor today was once the richest land of the world. Even Western scholars came to this conclusion of India's material affluence on the basis of economic parameters. But for Indians, Purusharth, meaningful endeavors, was the goal of human pursuit, not material affluence. When Purusharth is complete, Vairagya, a detachment from the world, emerges from within. This Vairagya is the greatest wealth. In intense Vairagya, realization of self is attained, and that is yoga. It is the supreme power. With this power of yoga, India never allowed the essence of her core to diminish, even in the worst of times. But countless countries in the world have disappeared in the whirlwind of time.
साधन धाम मोक्ष कर द्वारा पाइन जेहि परलोक साना साधन धाम मोक्ष कर द्वारा पाइन जेहि परलोक साना.
अग्नि जलने किसकी जमीन में, चैतन्य के जागृत होने की चीज.
जागृत रहना रे नगर में चोर आवेगा.
Householders worship divinities through Agni, and yogis preserve fire in dhuni, sacred fireplaces, thus bringing harmony in the inner and outer Agni. One of the names of Agni is Bharat. The people who worshipped Agni were known as Bharatjan, and the land where Agni remained alive forever was known as Bharat.